You're listening to JS Party, a weekly celebration of JavaScript and the web. Find us on the web at jsparty.fm, on the Fediverse at jsparty, at changelog.social, and of course, wherever you get your podcasts, just search for JS Party, you'll find us. Thanks to our partners at Fly. Launch your app near your users for peak performance. Fly makes it easy. Learn more at fly.io. Okay, hey, it's party time, y'all.
What's up, friends and party people? I'm talking to you today about our friends over at Clerk, the complete suite of embeddable UIs, the full-on, most comprehensive user management platform. If you're using React or Next.js, Clerk is perfect for you. Embeddable UIs, flexible APIs, and admin dashboards to authenticate and manage your users. And I'm here with Clerk CEO Colin Sidoti. Colin, give me the backstory. Why does Clerk exist?
When we started Clerk, we were definitely frustrated that a lot of the authentication solutions, both services or open source, kind of didn't have a good UI built in. And we would look at Google's sign-in experience and Google's user profile, and it just had this degree of polish and professionalism to it. It just didn't come out of the box with everything else. Usually you start with just email password as the sign-in options, and then you kind of have to add in extra modules to get OAuth on, and in the user profile, having a profile picture and setting up 2FA, right? It's like all this extra work that you have to do. And with Clerk, I think we really were inspired by Stripe checkout, where here's a checkout and it's great, right? And we had this question of why didn't that exist for auth really? And so for Clerk, you drop in our components, and it's really just a complete end-to-end experience right out of the box with that high degree of polish, high degree of professionalism that I think users have really come to expect these days.
Okay, so easy to drop in components. Really beautiful UI, by the way. I love it. Very nice. Clerk must be the most welcomed easy button when it comes to authentication, good UI, and all that, right?
One of the most striking things, still to this day, I think Clerk might be the only auth solution that comes with a user profile screen. And it's so insane to think about because you need the user profile screen because that's where the user goes and they self-serve to set up 2FA. And it ties back into the sign-in. And so it's we had to do that to be able to offer that experience. But it's so bizarre to us. Auth depends so much on user profile, yet most auth solutions don't include it. And it's just this weird, bizarre thing that never made sense to us. And so approaching it from first principles, we have it out of the box.
Very cool. So pixel perfect UIs embedded in minutes, React or Next.js. This is the easy button for you. Clerk is perfect for you. It is a full-on comprehensive user management platform with, as I said, beautiful UI. Best of all, they have pricing that scales with you. They have a phenomenal free tier, 10,000 monthly active users for free. Plus, when you scale to a paid plan, they have first day free. This means you won't be charged for users who sign up and never return. So that's phenomenal. Every feature you need now and as you scale. Get started at clerk.com. That's clerk.com. Once again, clerk.com.
Ahoy, hoy, world. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm not supposed to say that.
Jared.
I'm supposed to say, hi, I'm Jared, your internet friend. And I'm here with the Ahoy, hoy Meister himself. It's Nick Nisi. What's up, man?
Ahoy, hoy. How's it going?
This is why I'm not supposed to do it, because you're so good at it now.
What is this intro tagline? Do I need an intro tagline? I didn't brainstorm
You
one.
do. We're joined by Zach Leatherman from 11D. Go, Zach.
Hello.
Okay, we'll workshop that. We'll keep working on it.
That's the best I could do on late notice.
What's your new tagline? It's make websites, keep building awesome websites. I saw it on your 11D t-shirts. What's it say?
It's keep building for the web.
Okay.
It's kind of the sign off that I've used on my YouTube videos over the years, but yeah, Now it's immortalized on a t-shirt.
Okay, so you can't use it as a intro tagline. It's more of an outro.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, sorry.
We'll cue you to say that at the end. That's all good.
Okay, yeah. I'll keep it.
Well, we're here with Zach Leatherman. Perhaps you know him, the creator and maintainer of 11D, the awesome site generator that just won't die, continues to thrive despite many hurdles. And if you think it's strange that I rib Zach like I rib Nick Nisi, it's because we go way back. We've been longtime internet and real life friends. Zach from Nebraska moved across the river, but we still talk to him.
Betrayal.
Yes.
Moved over the border.
And all of us co-organizers of the once and amazing NEJS Conf, lauded around the world as one of the best regional conferences in this region. Isn't that right, Zach?
I mean, everyone has been saying that. I think so many people have been saying that, right? It's the best, if not the best, if not one of the best.
Right.
If not very good.
In all of Nebraska.
Not, it's
sure
It's
happened.
an okay conference.
It
Yeah.
happened. It happened 5 times, which is more than 4, which is nice.
Yeah, it was great. I loved it. I loved doing that. It was a ton of work, but it was amazing. And it was fun to hang out with everyone. And it's definitely something that I've been missing the last couple of years.
I look back at it fondly, and it seems like you are trying your hand at it once again with this online, in this case, 11D conference, which we'll get to eventually. But first, give the 11D brief elevator pitch for those who are catching up, and then we'll do a brief history. And because today things are changing and it's interesting, and we want to talk about that. But get everybody on solid footing here. What 11D is, and then where you've been.
Yeah, 11D is a static site generator. It's maybe one of the simpler ones that exists right now. It really allows a very simple on-ramp and easy on-ramp for beginners. And we try to keep the beginner experience as streamlined and simple as possible. So we're sort of known for, because we're sort of a reduced feature set from the beginning and you sort of add things on top of it later, we're sort of known for our build performance. And that's probably highly related to the configurability there. So you can have a very speedy build to build your site, and the output that you can get is also speedy as well. And I think for many years that was a controversial thing. It's nice to see that that's changing. Yeah, and there's more HTML-focused tools in the JavaScript ecosystem, at least.
And 11D has been going a long time. It was started by you, as I assume, a way of building your own sites, grew into something where people started to adopt it. I confessed a couple episodes of yours back that at first I was like, why is Zach building yet another site generator? And how wrong I was to have that, assumption, because it has stood the test of time and it has gone through many iterations. And also, I guess, patrons. You worked on it full time at Netlify for a while. You worked on it, I'm not sure if it was full time, but you were at Cloud Cannon, or you might still be at Cloud Cannon. I'm not sure the exact situation, but 11D was being patronized by Cloud Cannon. And now you recently announced, I need your help to make 11D fully independent and sustainable in 2024. That was just last week. So tell us the recent history and what's going on.
Yeah, so, I mean, you're right. I worked on it at Netlify full time for about a year and a half. And then I moved to Cloud Cannon after that. And yeah, I was at Cloud Cannon, I think, for 8 or 9 months. And yeah, now I'm going full indie, trying to self-sustain the project. And I think we have some fundraising goals that we're trying to hit right now. And we also have sort of this nest egg of contributions built up that has sort of bought us a runway, as it were, to try and make this into a self-sustainable, independent thing, which is very exciting, but also scary.
What's it going to take to get there?
I mean, right now, I'm making a ton of spreadsheets to figure out
So you don't know the answer?
what I need to do. I mean, I've had so many conversations over the last week because I basically announced this move last week. And yeah, and just a ton of people have sort of reached out to me with how they could help and gave me some guidance and trying to figure out the best path forward with the runway that I have. And so the contributions is sort of our first push. We're trying to do a fundraising initiative to get our monthly open collective and GitHub sponsors contributions up to a certain point. And that will sort of allow us the additional runway we need to build probably a product around the tool. And what that product will look like, I think, is still up for discussion. And then I've been talking with a lot of folks about what they might want or need and what our best path forward is. So, yeah, it's still to be determined, but it's going to be a lot of building, I think, over the next 6 to 7 months for sure.
Do you know what your community looks like in terms of, I know there's individuals who announce, like, I'm using 11D to build my site. There's probably people that hang out in some sort of a chat or something. I don't know about that, but are there large corporations using it? Obviously, Netlify thought it was interesting enough to fund for a while, and Cloud Cannon as well. And so those are some, corporate sponsors that were. What does that community look like? Do you have a lot of businesses building businesses on 11D, or is it mostly indies doing their own websites and pitching you $5 a month? What does it look like?
I mean, I think it's a mixture of both. Like, we have a couple of different contribution tiers right now. If you go to our website, 11d.dev, you can see sort of the logo cloud that we have of folks that have built websites with 11D. And there's a lot of very cool logos on there.
Yeah, impressive.
And we've sort of built that over the years of folks that have shipped things to production with 11D. And so, yeah, I don't think this is necessarily like the best time to go indie, as it were, just because I think a lot of marketing budgets are sort of tightening, and there is sort of it's a hard job market right now. But again, we have runway to grow into something that I think will be self-sustaining. And so, yeah, I think it's just building the right thing that people will pay money for in terms of a product later, while also maintaining the open source project at the same time. So, yeah, it's going to be a lot of work, but I'm excited because I do think that if this experiment is successful, the sky is the limit for the framework. So if we make it over this initial hump, then, I mean, anything's possible.
Nick, you said that the list of companies using 11D were impressive.
Yeah. I mean, just right off the bat, the first 4, NASA, CERN, TC39, W3C. And isn't CERN where the web was born, like with Tim Berners-Lee? Like, it's just awesome that it's, you're influencing
That's
there.
Sir Tim Berners-Lee, Nick, please.
Get it right.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's got to feel pretty good. I mean, NASA using your stuff, that's cool. CERN.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the classic problem, right? Of you offer an open source thing and people like the open source thing, and how do you get them to pay money? So
right.
I think that there's a couple of different funding models that people have tried over the years, and some of those have been more successful than others. I think the thing I always think about now, and the thing I've been thinking about for the last year, is just what happened to the Gatsby framework, because they took millions and millions of venture capital funding, and then they sold the company, and they had sort of a services-based, hosting-based product to go along with it to speed up build times for the service. And yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Gatsby customers are maybe feeling like there isn't very much investment going on in the open source part of that. And a lot of folks that use Gatsby Cloud are maybe not satisfied with what happened there either. So yeah, I don't think that I have all the right answer, like all the answers for what is the best way to do this. But
yeah,
I also have the advantage of 2 different advantages, in that I have saved the money that people have donated to me over the years. So I have a fairly sizable chunk of change that will allow me some time. And it also is a very small project. I don't have a bunch of full-time developers that I need to pay. I don't have a large team that requires that level of funding. So yeah, it's definitely a different approach than I think other folks have tried, but I'm making a go of it.
Well, I think you're well positioned, and I think if anything I know about you is that you're very calculated, and I think that you move slow and steady, which is always something I've been a proponent of. So when you make moves, they are thought through and decided and principled, versus just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. Of course, you do have to experiment a little. And like you said, you don't have the answers right now. So it's hard to get the answers without trying some stuff. The Gatsby one is interesting because they did take a different approach than you took, and they were a similar tool. And I would say that it ended, I don't know if it's ended, but it has gone not so well for Gatsby users because of that. And it's because I think of that fundamental disconnect between the financial incentives set up and the open source incentives, which were there from the beginning. of charging for things that really should be part of the Gatsby core tool, I think. Like, let's make it do faster builds. Well, all the open source users would want that, but we can also charge for it. It's a complicated thing, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that aspect of it. But it's really hard, and we've talked to hundreds of open core people over the years. This is essentially, it's a different take on open core. It's like, here's our core tool set, and then services, which is becomes part of the tool set you can opt into that you pay for. The challenge there is always deciding, like, well, what goes in the open source thing and what doesn't, you know? And one thing I saw when 11D was sponsored by Netlify, a lot of the work that you did was like, well, Netlify wants this to happen, and that makes sense because they're funding the full-time development of it. Of course, we're going to build that thing. And from my perspective, Zach, I'm just over here watching, I don't think necessarily a lot of that stuff made 11D as awesome as it would have been with just the pure motivations behind it, like your own and your community's. And so then after you left there, it's kind of like I'm streamlining, I'm ripping a lot of stuff out. I mean, that was what I read from your blog post.
Well, we did a community survey when the Netlify change happened, and all of our sort of the lowest tier things that were being utilized by our community were those sort of hosting specific things. And so it became a very easy decision to say, we don't need to maintain these like super underutilized pieces of integration moving forward because almost no one is using them.
Right.
So that wasn't a hard decision to make just because the community desire wasn't there. So I think you're absolutely right that we built some things that did not end up having a ton of long-term benefit, but we also didn't let those drag us down when we moved and the relationship changed too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing that you've been able to navigate those transitions so well, because that's very complicated, moving in and out of companies and like keeping 11D its own thing the entire time. Like, they didn't acquire 11D, they hired Zach. I think that's how it worked.
Yeah, so when I joined Netlify at the very beginning, I said that 11D was my own independent thing, and I worked at Netlify for a year and a half before I went full-time. I worked on their marketing websites. And yeah, we used 11D to build those marketing websites. So that was a nice collaboration too, because I was using 11D at work and to build work things. So I almost think that kind of arrangement was better for the project than full-time investment in many ways, just because it was driven from real things that we needed to build for production and not, I guess, I don't know, features that were being shipped to see if they would be successful.
Yeah.
And I'm also just, I think philosophically, I'm sort of I like to be a late adopter to things. I don't want to be the first person to try out a thing that I don't think is going to have long-term benefit.
Right.
And I have some exceptions to that, of course.
What are your exceptions?
I would say things that are shipped on the web platform. I'm happy to be an early adopter of web standards and things that are shipping in multiple browsers. And I think Nick is probably smiling right now because we've had a lot of discussions about TypeScript.
Nick has a giant grin on his face for those who are just listening. Nick, what's so funny?
Well, I think I'm going a different direction than what you were, but
Oh, okay.
I was grinning at like a late adopter to things, and then
Hey, Jared here in the editing room. Quick heads up, Nick is about to say something that sounds like Node.js, but he's actually saying Node.js. That's N-O-J-S. You'd figure it out, but I figured I would save you the mental overhead. Okay, back to the conversation.
in the background you have that Node.js sign, and I'm like, JavaScript is you can. It's time to adopt. You can adopt it.
Yeah, I mean, Node.js, I feel like that is confusing to a lot of people, but I keep it up there just for, I don't know, argumentative reasons. But that Node.js tagline, those letters are from the Nebraska JavaScript conference sign. And yeah, that's maybe the funny part of it. But
yeah.
Node.js is really a shout out to progressive enhancement. It's not like an anti-JavaScript movement or an anti-JavaScript thing. It's a start with HTML thing and add JS later. And Node.js is kind of the class that folks used to use. It was like a convention that you would add this class to your HTML element with JavaScript, so you could customize JavaScript only behaviors. So
Right.
that's what that is. But we could talk about TypeScript now since I brought it up.
Well, yeah, to transition into that sign is evergreen because now it's no JavaScript, it's TypeScript now, right? So
No.
is that what we
Dare
can
you
expect?
rebrand me?
Zach Leatherman, TypeScript proponent.
I mean, I think that I've said over the years that I am fine with TypeScript, but I also wish that it would be a first-party part of the platform. And I mean, I think there have been various standards discussions to add types to JavaScript as a first-party thing, and I think that that's great. I would love to see that happen, as long as they're optional and not everyone needs to use them.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that would be great, and I think that would be great for the platform. And I think another part of that that's very awkward for me is when you think of something like JSX and how much extra work went into sort of shoehorning JSX into everything. And I really feel like it would have been better for the web generally if that had been a standards-based movement and not just like a piecemeal thing, because that still isn't something that is first party in Node.js. And so it's awkward. It's just very awkward. And we have these features that are now available in only certain JavaScript runtimes and not all JavaScript runtimes. And now we're getting in sort of into the weeds about things that are, what is part of what is JavaScript formal and what isn't. Like Dino and Bun would say that it's part of their runtime. JSX and types are like first party things. But I mean, what happens when one of the major runtimes disagrees?
Yeah, it really does. Like, we're in this weird state now where Node was like this is the way to do JavaScript outside of a browser. And now it's like, there's 3 ways to do that. And which one's the correct way? And, for a long time I was like, oh, I don't like what Bun's doing because they're doing all of these quote unquote non-standard things. And it's non-standard because Node's not supporting that. But is it, is there a governing body? I don't even know for like JavaScript on the server in a way. I know like, they get the features from TC39 through Chromium effectively, but like, is there a standards body for we should all be supporting this in the same way that there has, like, we've wanted that in the browser for so long?
Yeah. I think there's a working group. I don't think there's like a standards body. Is that right, Zach?
Yeah, I think that the Winter CG group was trying to do something around server render JavaScript runtimes.
Server side conformity. Yeah, that, as far as I can tell, that group is almost entirely made up of Dino and Cloudflare folks. Now, maybe that's changed since I last talked to them, but it's a start.
Yeah, I think that I saw some compatibility tables come out from, I think maybe some Netlify folks. I don't know. I saw those shared online recently with all of the different sort of standards-based features and which ones are implemented in all of these server JavaScript runtimes. And there are just, I don't know. It feels like a failure to me that we even have to do that. But I guess I understand that certain things are prioritized and certain things aren't.
Yeah.
But yeah, it almost feels like the browser wars are continuing and that it's like a repeat of that, but with JavaScript runtimes in the server.
Yeah.
The server wars.
And
it really is.
It's not a great look.
Well, on one side, it's not great. On the other side, I do think it's spurring some innovation and progress. Some things don't progress perfectly, but at least they're moving in a direction. Now you can move in the wrong direction, but I think stagnation also is not great, Yeah,
and you can definitely see Node.js seems like they've gotten a fire lit under them recently, and they've been shipping like crazy, and just adding like ESM, CJS compatibility in Node.js, I think is just a huge win. And you got to assume that a lot of that was born from competition. So
yeah, I just used Node a couple of weeks back to write a server that was probably like 150 lines of code, and I hadn't used Node for a few years, and I was like, oh, it's nice. This is pretty nice, It was easy. Yeah. ESM was cool. Async awaits there, and I just didn't have much trouble. ChatGPT knew most of the stuff I didn't know. What'd you say, Nick?
TypeScript, right?
I didn't use a lick of TypeScript, but I had full TypeScript support in my editor. It was doing stuff because Zed, as well as VS Code, all the new editors just use the TypeScript LSP and they're like, hey, your thing is not right. And so it's doing stuff, but I'm just writing JavaScript over here. So do you consider me a TypeScript user then, Nick, or no?
Yes, only because you wouldn't like that.
Well, that's offensive. I take offense to that.
That's amazing.
I had only .js files in my code. No TS.
Yes, JS. Yes to the dress JS.
Yes, JS. No TS. In fact, I would take that sign of yours, Zach, if you just replace the J with a T. I would adopt it. I have it behind me. No TS.
I don't have a T. It's all right.
What's up, friends? This episode is brought to you by our friends at Neon. Managed serverless Postgres is exciting. We're excited. We think it's the future. And I'm here with Nikita Shamganov, co-founder and CEO of Neon. So Nikita, what is it like to be building the future?
Well, I have a flurry of feelings about it, coming from the fact that I have been at it for a while. There's more confidence in terms of what the North Star is. And there is a lot more excitement because I truly believe that this is what's going to be the future, and that future needs to be built, and it's very exciting to build the future. And I think this is an opportunity for this moment in time. We have just the technology for it, and the urgency is required to be able to seize on that opportunity.
So we're obviously pretty excited about Neon and Postgres and managed Postgres and serverless Postgres and data branching and all the fun stuff. And it's one thing to be building for the future, and it's another to actually have the response from the community. What's been going on? What's the reaction like?
We are lately onboarding close to 2,500 databases a day. That's more than one database a minute of somebody in the world coming to Neon, either directly or through the help of our partners. And they're able to experience what it feels like to program against database that looks like a URL, and the program against a database that can support branching and be like a good buddy for you in the software development lifecycle. So that's exciting. And while that's exciting, the urgency at Neon is currently unparalleled.
There you go. If you want to experience the future, go to neon.tech. On-demand scalability, bottomless storage, database branching, everything you want for the Postgres of the future. Once again, neon.tech.
Well, one thing you've adopted recently in my eyes, and it's not new, but it's newly becoming standard, is like web component stuff. I mean, you seem to be all in on web components. I know there's like this HTML first or HTML web components movement, which I talked about a little bit with Brian LaRue a couple weeks back on the pod. And I've seen you publishing, like, I don't know if they're going to NPM or where they're going, but you're like, here's a web component and you can use my marquee. I don't know if that's one of them, but you like have things, you have widgets that you're just like, using my marquee element. Can you talk about that whole side of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I think that at my core, I'm a front-end web developer. So even though I work on Node.js almost exclusively now, but all the websites I build use web components because I really think that is the sort of, I don't know, lowest overhead way to build interactivity on a website with the least amount of dev tool overhead and tool chain overhead. So for me, it's really the sweet spot of simplicity and longevity. And that's what I love about web components. And I think when it comes to publishing web components, anytime I build something with a web component, why not publish it so I can reuse it on all of my, 50 websites or what I have. Probably don't have that many in production now, but in all of my projects moving forward. And I really try to make my web components as design free as possible. So as much like just I think a lot of my demos are just like Times New Roman, like the default typeface, and just as little CSS in them as possible, because I really want them to be as reusable across as many projects and design systems as possible. And I think the best way to do that is just to have these sort of just structural components that don't take a strong stance on how it should look, just how it should behave.
What's some of the stuff that you built and put out there?
Oh, man.
In addition to that awesome marquee element that I told everybody about.
I don't know if I actually have a marquee
I made it up. I just made it up full cloth.
Yeah, you may have
I may have
may have-
fabricated that one.
hallucinated that.
Oh, yes, I may have.
That's what it is, right?
Mhm.
I think maybe the most well-known one that I've done is Island, which is like a lazy loader, basically, which is a web component that allows you to dynamically initialize or hydrate client-side components. It's just like Islands architecture, kind of, but in a framework-independent way, in a server tool independent way. You can use it on any project.
Just looking at your packages on NPM, you have the most amazing names for things. Squirminal. It's awesome.
The Squirminal.
What's that one? It's a terminal?
Squirminal sort of animates progressively rendered content. So it will like reveal a character at a time to make it look like you're typing something.
It almost sounds like a marquee.
And I used that for like a fake live coding tech talk that I did a few years ago.
Oh, nice.
Where I pretended that I was live coding, but it was all completely tightly controlled.
Was it triggered by key presses?
So I just like mash on my keyboard.
Yeah, so you just mash it and then just comes out
and it would
pre-rendered.
type. And I posted a video of my daughter, who was maybe at the time like 4 or 5, using this to write code on my computer.
Nice.
And yeah, it got like hundreds of retweets because people were like, wow, she's an amazing coder.
they fell for it. You should have used that one gif of the cat doing it, then people would at least not know. But I guess it probably wouldn't have gone quite as viral.
Yeah, you could find the video of that on my website.
Yeah, share that with us. We'll put it in the notes. What else you got, Nick?
Yeah, another one, Flex Luther. That's awesome.
That's a good one. Pun King over there.
Yeah, that one was from probably just 10 years ago.
Really?
I don't know. That's a long time ago, but I repackaged it as a custom element. But yeah, that's just like a Flexbox utility.
And another one, 7-minute tabs. I love that name.
That reminds me of your old website name. Wasn't your website like some sort of 360 abs or something? What was it? Tell me what it was.
Yeah, that's true. What was that? It was 7-minute abs, Web 3.0.
Razor blades? Something about razor blades.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because remember the old commercials about those shaving utility?
Yeah, they just kept adding more blades.
Yeah, more and more blades. Yeah, that was the
I think SNL did a mockery of that one time, a fake commercial where they just keep adding more blades until there was like 12, 13. Because it was like Gillette Mach 3 and it had 3 blades. And then there's like the Mach 4 and it's like 4 blades. Then they had 5 blades.
Whoa.
Which I always thought was silly because, one of those gets dull and you're just going to drag it across your face anyways.
No. More is always better. That's the same
Good point.
That's Moore's
the
Law.
same with JavaScript tool chains too.
Yeah, Moore's Law is always better. Good point, Nick.
Add more transistors.
And so it was like 360 blades, 7-minute abs. I don't know. Just you're reusing your puns is my
6
point.
blades, 7-minute abs, and Web 3.0, I think.
Oh, that's what it was?
I didn't look it up.
That sounds right.
He just memorized it.
The order might be different, but yeah, that sounds right.
Nick grabbed that out of his journal. He used to write about it.
Out of your diary? Dear Dev
Zach has
Diary.
the greatest tagline. I wish it was mine.
But that does kind of just go back to like the minimalist, like, I don't know, aspect of my life. And I think that
You were mocking Web 3.0 components before it was cool,
yeah, that was like 2007 that I started that website.
This was not during the Web 3 movement. This was during the Web 2.0 movement that you decided to increment that sucker.
That's why the name became irrelevant, because someone actually decided that Web 3.0 was something that they wanted to use.
Well, on an infinite time span, I think all satire becomes truth, doesn't it? I mean, this is what's happening, literally happening this week as Google's new AI-based summaries can't seem to determine what is and what is not satire and is giving satirical answers to real questions.
Who could have predicted this?
It's predictable, and yet it's unbelievable that they would ship that product. Like, this is their flagship. This is their, what's that called? The cow that makes all the money? This is their cash cow. This is Google search. It's so embarrassing. Anyways, I could go on, but I have to go eat one of my daily rocks, which is one of their suggestions for a healthy lifestyle, is eat 1 rock a day.
Don't forget to put glue on your pizza.
Yeah.
Because that's also a very tasty ingredient. I mean, some glue is edible, right? Yeah, Elmer's glue. I feel like that's very on brand for the level of AI that we're operating at right now.
Yeah.
You can eat some Elmer's glue.
Well, we all ate a little bit of probably rubber cement in kindergarten, didn't we? Because it just looks so tasty. I mean, how could you not, Nick?
Explains a lot.
I assume that's how you got here.
I don't think everyone's on board with that.
Don't publish this transcript because if it gets slurped up into the machine, it's going to become standard advice for kindergartners.
The great Jared Santo glue policy.
Yeah.
That's the only path forward with AI, right? And so we need to post more so that the AI models are trained on terrible. I mean, there's plenty of posts already out there, so maybe we just don't even need to worry about it.
Yeah, plenty to eat up. Well, the Stack Overflow users are doing that as a way of revolting against recent content deals, as they're actually going back and changing their answers to be wrong, which will end exactly the way that we think it's going to, I believe.
Zach, are you using AI in some way during your day?
I am not. No, not at all.
0%.
Yeah, I have not found a thing that I think would help me be productive in a way that I felt like had long-term benefit for me. Not to say that I won't at some point, but yeah, I have never really even got into GitHub Copilot back when it shipped years ago. So I don't know. I'm a late adopter.
Yeah, he's a late adopter. That's fair.
Yeah. How about from a maintainer side? Like for 11D, is it in the back of your mind to somehow optimize things in a way that an LLM could better help other people discover 11D, work with 11D, give advice on properly doing things, like not shipping JavaScript or,
Yeah, I mean, I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would look like. I feel like it might have a space in like diagnosing issues, or at least providing help for folks that are trying to diagnose issues. And I know the Astro folks have shipped some LLM stuff on their docs, and I haven't used it personally, but I think that there is space for LLMs. I think that, I don't know, the current ecosystem around it just feels very data slurpy in a way that I'm not really on board with. I think that the only path forward for how I would use it maybe is just local models at my own machine, because I don't think that I would want to just arbitrarily send a bunch of data to OpenAI or any of these other third-party services, because who knows how they're using it. And I don't think there's enough data governance around how that data is being utilized.
For sure.
Like I did my taxes this year, and like there was a button to sort of send, like diagnose my return, and immediately like privacy warning bells are going off in my brain. Like, is this optional? Is this already happening? Are my tax returns being fed to OpenAI? Like, what is going on right now? And I think there's a lot of sort of underhandedness in those relationships right now that I'm not comfortable with. But
Well, you're definitely getting audited this year.
Yeah, because we're feeding this right in, and they're going to be after you for sure.
But that is like an interesting thing. Like, you don't have to use these AI technologies directly, but it's almost like the modern SEO, right? And somebody who's new to 11D could have Copilot installed or whatever, or be asking ChatGPT these questions, and like it could make or break their experience with 11D just based on what ChatGPT is responding with. And how do you optimize for that? Like it's almost like putting a lot of faith into these models to not just like tank you from a marketing perspective.
Misrepresent. Yeah.
yeah, that's a fascinating point that I hadn't really thought about. Like, what's the user experience of someone that's trying 11D? They hit a problem and then they ask ChatGPT what the problem was. And if ChatGPT gives them a bad answer, then that's completely out of my control.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's even worse.
Right.
I'll feel much worse about it.
And you can't opt out of that situation. Like on a personal level for now, and it's still iffy, you can kind of unplug from the grid, so to speak, and just opt out of a lot, even though there's stuff that you don't have the choice, like maybe your tax returns, who knows. But as a tool provider in a world where everybody is increasingly using these, you can't opt out of that. Like they are going to ask ChatGPT about your tool, just like they were going to Google search for a tool prior, and you want to be well represented in that circumstance. We've talked about this a couple times with Jose Valim about Elixir, because I write a lot of Elixir code, and I have been using these tools. And while they are very good at TypeScript, from my perspective, how would I know? I suck at TypeScript. But they're bad at Elixir. And so I asked Jose, I'm like, hey, just because it's a smaller language, way less examples, the docs are good. So if you ask very common things, but just the sample code available to the tooling is just not great. And so they would just routinely, both on the Google and the OpenAI side, just give me code that's not going to work. And so I end up being like, why am I going to use this tool? It's wrong so many times. But that's just Elixir land. You go to a different land. Nick, you're using it a lot for TypeScript. It's probably right 9 out of 10 times, 8, 7. Where you at?
Yeah, 7 probably.
Yeah.
But like a lot of the stuff that I've been doing with like ASTs and doing that, like that's a very vast, verbose like API, right? To be able to tokenize your TypeScript. And it's fantastic at that, which makes it a lot easier to actually do that. Whereas if I couldn't just ask like very context specific questions, I would be doing a lot less with that for sure.
Right.
That's kind of what got me thinking, like, you know, a new user coming in and they're like, I want to do this thing with WebC and make this thing. And it's giving them completely wrong stuff. Like at some point they give up on that. And if they don't find the content on their own, then like they consider it like it could be bad. But also I think like at least right now, like more times than not, like especially probably for tech people, they're probably like, the LLM's just wrong and it's dumb. And they like, you know, give the benefit of the doubt to the tool rather than the LLM. When does that change?
Certainly something to be considering as a maintainer. Something that you probably won't be able to opt out of is like, how does 11D represent inside of Copilot and other, you know, code gen tools so that people who want to use your tool can have success right away versus not. I think
There's no way to solve that problem.
Yeah, I mean, I think currently there are ways to solve it, similar to what Astro is doing, right? So they're like, hey, come use our tool because we went ahead and provided all the embeddings and did the RAG and like we made it so that it knows Astro really well.
Yeah, but you need discoverability before.
Yeah, discoverability is an issue. So I think there you start to, and it's so early days, but you start to see like what plays out. Like is ChatGPT the tool? And then you have to have a ChatGPT plugin that basically uses your version of ChatGPT. So when someone says, hey, how do I do this thing in 11D? Instead of using its default code base or data source, it's like, I have an 11D plugin. Would you like to use that? And they say yes. And now that one's way better than it would be on its own. For instance, I'm not saying that's the move, but I think that might become something where eventually it's worth investing in that kind of a thing. I think right now I would just make sure your docs are awesome and keep publishing example code and that kind of thing. And that's the best you can do today.
Yeah, that is a problem.
Welcome to the new world. Yeah, lots of
I'll
problems.
lose some sleep on that. Thanks, Nick. Sorry. No, it's fine. Yeah, I don't know what the best solution is there because it is sort of like a Google search problem, right? Google changes their algorithm, and then we need to adapt to serve people using Google. And so once a tool hits a certain level of popularity, it's almost like you have no choice but to adapt and survive.
Mm-hmm.
It's like how on YouTube everybody has like, you know, their face really big with open mouths, like
Right.
And that's to appease the algorithm. Like you just have to figure out what that is for ChatGPT or for Copilot and just have that.
And every video is either less than 60 seconds, so it can go vertical, or like exactly 10 minutes because the algorithm likes 10-minute videos or whatever. And so you watch a 3-minute video that lasts 10 minutes and you can just see the creator like just fluffing in there and you're like, okay, get to the point. And they're just appeasing the algorithm. It's disgusting, but it's life.
Yeah, it's the same thing with, I know y'all are big on recipe websites, finding your recipe, how to cook stuff online.
Oh, yeah.
They give you like your whole life story before they give you how to make the thing you're trying to find. And that's all just SEO based stuff, I think. So
it's just to get more words out there. Yeah.
Can we just make content for people?
This is why I didn't bring up LLMs to Zach. I knew we were going to get depressed, dude.
I mean, I don't know. To me, the whole point comes back to, do we want to make content for algorithms and computers to slurp up, or do we want to make genuine connections with people and like grow community that way? And to me, there's so much better return on investment with trying to make connections directly with people rather than worrying about how your page ranks on Google. Or I know it's important to at least think about it a little bit, but yeah, I would rather make connections with people online so you can grow a community that way. And the fragmentation of social media is making that very hard now. But
yeah. We take a similar perspective with our podcast. I think we could be a lot more baity and trendy, and there's a lot we could do. We see other people doing it to like just get more ears, more eyes, and do that deal. But at the end of the day, we want to have awesome conversations that are truly valuable and build a listenership of people who are community oriented and like-minded. So we have a deeper connection with a smaller amount of people versus a shallower connection with a much larger amount of people. And of course, we look over at like the views that YouTube gets and the views that are happening over at TikTok, and we're like, oh man, look at that audience, it's huge. And it's like, how connected and real is that to that creator? Some have both, the best of both worlds, right? Like they go very deep with a lot of people, good for them, that's amazing. But other people have to compromise the kind of content they would create in order to do that. And I think that's where you end up ultimately missing the mark. So we are definitely of similar spirits on that side, Zach. Let's get back to these web components because I was having fun, man. Nick, read us some more. What else does he have?
Let's see.
Flex Luthor, we had a Superman phase.
Mm-hmm.
We had his
7-minute tabs. I'm trying to only pick out the funny ones.
That's from, by the way, 7-minute tabs. That is a take on something about Mary's 7-minute abs, which was better than 8-minute abs. He was convinced.
Might have been that reference, yeah.
I mean, that's what originally I assume it was from, because I can't remember who it was. I think he, in the car scene on Something About Mary, that's right. There's a hitchhiker scene, and he's hitchhiking, and he picks up this guy who's convinced that he's going to become rich by creating a workout program called 7-minute abs.
7-minute abs.
Because he's going to undercut the 8-minute abs, which was a very popular workout program of the day.
And we guarantee just as good a workout as the 8-minute, folk.
Yeah.
And he was going to have 7-minute abs. And then I think it was Ben Stiller's like, well, why don't you just do a 6-minute abs? And the guy's like, you can't get a workout in 6 minutes. That's ridiculous.
You can't have a virtual DOM and 120K. That's ridiculous.
Exactly. So there you go. Filling in that reference. And stalling for Nick, who's now going to read us the next one.
Snowfall.
What's that?
A web component to add snow to your website.
Okay, also a James Bond movie, right?
Yes.
Skyfall.
Skyfall. Oh,
Wasn't Snowfall like
that might not even be a pun. It just that's a literal naming. Probably your worst name, Zach. No offense.
No, I mean, that one isn't even really my component. That's sort of repackaged up from a code pen. So I wanted snow on my website, and there was a code pen that did it, and I made it a web component. I think that there's like this huge market for like things that exist like that. People have published code that is worthwhile and great online. It's just not packaged up in a reusable way. Yeah, I mean, CodePen should allow folks to publish their stuff as web components. That would be amazing.
That's a cool idea. So imagine that I'm a Joe developer and I have a website. It's generated with Astro. And I was like, I want Snowfall. And I don't want to go to CodePen and copy paste the function. I want Zach's web component in my Astro site. What do I do? Like, what are my steps?
Yeah, I mean, you can install it directly from NPM. And then
NPM installs Snowfall.
Yeah, I think it's scoped under my name, but
Okay.
no, it's not even my code. But yeah,
Then what do I do?
then you import it and use it. It's a custom element. You can use it anywhere HTML is served. All you need is the JavaScript bundle, the JavaScript file, import it into your bundle, and that's kind of it. You just put the custom element on your page, and you're good to go.
And what happens with that element if there's no JavaScript? No JS.
No snow.
No snow. No fun.
That's it.
Let's go back to one that's not trivial.
Excuse me.
Let's say I use...
Excuse me. I am just taking offense.
No offense. Well, no snow is fine, right? Like my user experience is...
Oh, you mean the degraded experience is...
Yeah, exactly. Like so let's say I import a web component that's like a calendar widget. I'm sure that's something like that. Maybe you didn't create it, but there's probably a calendar widget. And I do all the same stuff.
There's a great calendar web
is there?
component that just came out. It was called Callie from Wiki Nilliams. Nikki Williams, probably.
Wiki Nilliams
on Twitter.
Okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
I think, you can check that one out. It's amazing.
Send us the link. We'll put it in there. Cali, like California, perhaps.
Cally.
There you go. So it's a calendar widget. So let's assume I npm install that sucker, and I do all the stuff that it tells me to do, and then JavaScript doesn't run. Does my website break? Does the calendar just not show up? How does it work?
I mean, if I were to create my own calendar component, I would progressively enhance from an input type date. And so when JavaScript isn't available, then it would fall back to the built-in date picker component. Obviously, it's not going to work quite as good because I think this one has like input type ranges, and you could select like a range of dates and a bunch of different extra features on top. But yeah, I think there's always sort of this progressive enhancement idea that you need to think about and how it's going to work, not just without JavaScript, but before JavaScript renders. I feel like there's this whole class of tools right now that basically rely on JavaScript to run first. And a lot of those tool chains are set up such that they assume that JavaScript, not just that JavaScript's going to be available, but that it's going to run in your critical path and be available before even the content is rendered, which I think is a mistake to make because you can get a whole bunch of extra performance by doing HTML rendered things and using JavaScript to enhance what is already rendered on the screen. And there's some drawbacks, of course, when it comes to content shift and things like that. But yeah, it's just, I think every component needs to be sort of evaluated independently, right? I think the classic example is that sort of image comparison component. And we've done a ton of different examples of this in WebC. How do you build an image comparison component? And what are all of the different progressive enhancement strategies that you can take? So the component where you have a slider and you can drag back and forth, compare a left and a right image and see how they're different. And so, yeah, on the WebC docs, you can go out and see there's like 7 different examples of how to progressively enhance this type of component. And yeah, there's a bunch of different ones, right? We have one that works without JavaScript, and that uses the :has selector and checkboxes, which is maybe not the most accessible thing, because that's the other sort of aspect of this entire discussion, right? Is that your no JavaScript experience might not be as accessible as your enhanced JavaScript experience. So there's a bunch of different variables to take into account. Component development is not easy or solved by any means.
For some, that might be paralyzing, don't you think?
Yes, absolutely. It's the curse of knowledge, right? The more you learn, the more complicated a solution gets. But it's also part of our jobs as professionals, right? To try and learn as much as we can about things that can impact the user experience. And that is maybe the hard part of having a lot of these like tooling discussions, is that almost all of the discussion that we have is around the developer experience, and the user experience is often left to be desired, or it's not even discussed in a lot of these, avenues. So I don't know. I care a lot more about the user experience than the developer experience if I had to choose one. I know you don't have to, but I think it's much more fascinating to think about these progressive enhancement strategies and how these components work in terms of how they affect users, rather than, what's the best way to put it in my project.
Well, I think the nice thing about knowledge sharing is our ability to pass down the knowledge, but also to pass down the tooling. So, you know a lot more about the stuff than I do. Maybe Nick is on your same level, but I can at least npm install your web components and use them at first, but then eventually you always have to kind of look under the covers, I find, over time. How is this thing working? How can I adjust it? How can I change it? And you learn and see the way that people who have thought deeply about these subjects build their components, and you can start to build yours the same way and realize, oh, here's an accessibility concern that's being accounted for here. I didn't even know that was a thing. Now I know about it. And so you start off as a script kiddie, so to speak, right? Like I'm just downloading someone else's script and using it, which is where 99% of us start in this world. And then eventually you're like, oh, I can read this script now. And then you're like, oh, I can write my own script. And I've learned, hopefully from people who know what they're doing, how to do it well, or at least what to think about when building. And we can pass down the knowledge in that way as well. So I guess for me, that's heartening, because otherwise it's like those who know and those who don't know. And how do we transfer that to everybody so that there's not just this elite class that builds great user experiences, and then the rest of us just schlocking spaghetti around everywhere.
But with a great developer experience, potentially. And I think that that's just like a failure of the tooling, that you have to pick one or the other. But I think that projects like 11D and like Astro, for example, are kind of bridging that and making it a lot easier to write, in the style that you want to write. But at the end of the day, like you just ship, like my site, for example, has 0 JavaScript except for on one page where it needs it, and that's it.
It's all TypeScript?
No. Yes, but no. Yeah, it ships nothing. And that makes it really easy, both from a developer experience side, but also like I get the benefits of the user experience as well.
Yeah, and that's not even to say, there's a couple of different things there. I think that a lot of tools for many years required you to have a JavaScript bundle. They gave you a JavaScript bundle by mechanism of how the tool was designed and the assumptions that they built into the tool. And a lot of those were single page application focused first tools. And I think the sort of misstep that was taken from a larger engineering perspective into these tools is that you really only need HTML and CSS to build an attractive and well-looking and well-operating website. It doesn't need, not every website needs extra interactivity beyond links. And so it almost became a failure of you're starting with this baseline and someone else decided that the baseline should be much higher than it needs to be. And then a bunch of folks felt sort of left out by those assumptions that went into the tools that were made. And it's great to see some more competition in the space that exists to satisfy these folks that were left out, because I really think that this is a great time for web developers right now, because we can build things how we want to build them. And it doesn't need to sacrifice, just like you said, it doesn't need to sacrifice the user experience. And yeah, I love to see zero JavaScript bundle by default tools succeed.
What's up, friends? I'm here with two new friends of mine from Speakeasy, Sagar Bachu, co-founder and CEO, and George Hadar, founding engineer. So for the uninitiated, Speakeasy takes care of the entire SDK workflow to save you and your team significant time, delivering enterprise-grade SDKs to your customers in minutes. You can generate best-in-class SDKs in TypeScript, Python, Go, Java, C#, and even PHP. So, Sagar, what's your excitement level for APIs and this API world we're living in?
I'm super excited about APIs. I think we went through Gen 0 of the API first revolution, and I think we're actually going to a second one now with the tailwinds of the AI ecosystem kind of causing that to be reinvigorated. So yeah, super psyched to be working in this space right now. I think everyone's at a point now where everyone knows about REST APIs and GraphQL APIs and gRPC APIs. And now I think we're actually getting into the second phase of that, which is how do people ship great developer experience in addition to the APIs? And how do we build like truly best-in-class APIs that turn into long-lived infrastructure, right? This is kind of the vision I think that Stripe helped manifest for everyone in the fintech space, which is an API that really sets the bar for developer experience, but also like it's something you can truly rely on, right? It's a true, if you make Stripe a dependency of your company, you can feel confident doing that. And I think that's the part of API development that really excites me.
I agree. That is exciting. So, George, teams who leverage Speakeasy are those who have leaned all the way in on documenting a solid open API spec and mostly want to be hands-off of their SDKs. Is that right?
Precisely. So you're coming to us because you want to be hands-off from that process. You want to put all of your effort into documenting your API, and then you're trusting and relying on great quality tooling to turn that into code and documentation, which is what we're doing for you. You're not meant to change or edit the code because it will be regenerated the next time you change your open API. So you ultimately put it in our hands. Once you've committed the changes to your open API, it's off to the races, and you get a new release of your SDK. You'll get a pull request to review. You will have the opportunity to look at the contents of the code, but quite often you can let it hum along creating SDKs for you or new releases of your SDK every time you change your API.
Very cool. Well, the thing that got me with Speakeasy that really helped me understand it was that, as George said, it is hands-off. You can just focus on documenting your API via the open API spec. And you still have pull requests, you still have visibility. And in fact, they will even hop into pull requests with you to triage any sort of anomalies or issues that come from the SDK generation and improve the back end of Speakeasy to make future releases better for you. I think this is so cool for teams who want to just be hands-off of their SDKs and focus on their product, focus on the core documentation around the open API spec, but still have all that awesome visibility. Okay, so the next step is to go to speakeasyapi.dev. You can start off with one free SDK. That's so cool because you can go there right now and try it out completely free. One free SDK. Let them know the changelog sent you. Let them know JS Party sent you. Once again, speakeasyapi.dev.
Let's switch gears quickly before we let you go and talk about 11DConf. This was a big endeavor of yours over the last few months. It seemed like it was quite a hit. Of course, it had the Zach Leatherman thoughtfulness applied, and having run multiple conferences with you, I know how much you put into these things. You published a really cool retrospective, which we will link to. I think this is great for anybody who's running events online or considering it. You have analytics, you have your budget very public there. Tell us about it and what you think went really well, and then maybe we'll talk about what you might do next time or do differently. Not the full deep dive because people can read the blog post, but just give us a taste.
Yeah, I mean, I think the conference was not my idea.
Oh.
It was not originally something that I wanted to do. Just because it's almost like the curse of knowledge that we just talked about. I know what goes into organizing a conference, and I know how much work it takes, and I couldn't have done that as sort of a side project thing. And that was something that Cloud Cannon thought it would be a great thing for me to do. And that was their idea, and they pushed for it. And yeah, they gave me a ton of work time to do it. And that was a great arrangement. That was sort of a big gift to the 11D project too, because we got a ton of momentum coming off of that. And it was pretty successful. I think we had 2,000 folks register for the conference, and I think we peaked at like 400 live stream simultaneous viewers. And yeah, it was amazing. And I think in a time where I was also just very reluctant to do online conferences, just generally, because I've had experiences as a speaker during the pandemic where you're just sort of speaking to this empty room and you don't get any feedback, and it's not the best speaking experience by any means. And so I think for this style of project where it's just like a global open source project where we don't have like a huge budget to run a conference, online makes the most sense. And it's also the most accessible for anyone to visit. Now, moving forward, if we had unlimited money at some point, we might do an in-person conference and then try and augment with online simultaneously. But I mean, just to get the most people involved that you can, it really, to me, makes sense to have it online, which I did not agree with originally. But yeah, I don't know. I maybe went off on a tangent there, but
It's all good.
yeah, the conference I think went really great. I was delighted by it. We sort of used just streaming tools that have already sort of become very professional to serve all of these people that are streaming content online now. We use StreamYard, and that was great for the conference. And we had just back-to-back, like 6 or 7 hours worth of content with very few breaks. We had a live captioner from White Coat Captioning, and they were great. And the captions went directly to YouTube, so you could basically have live streamed accurate captions that understood all of like the brand names that we were saying and had a much higher rate of accuracy than auto-generated captions would. So yeah, I was delighted by it. I was really happy with the conference. I was really happy with how it went.
Are you going to do it again, or was that a Cloud Cannon sponsored one-time thing?
I think we'll do it again. We have sort of all of the tools and like a bunch of the decisions made already. So we'll probably repeat it next year. What that will look like next year, I don't know yet. But yeah, I think we'll absolutely do it. One of the maybe more unique things that we did for the conference is that we sold swag instead of gave it away. And so I had to basically set up shop in my house and was like packing swag bags for everyone that wanted to buy swag, because I thought if people want swag, they can pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And if people don't want swag, then great. You don't have to just, because I feel like people get swag and then they just don't ever do anything with it.
Right.
That happens a lot with conferences.
I think especially at a virtual event, I don't even know if swag is assumed or usually part of virtual events. I think in a real life event, it would be weird to, maybe not, just like when you go to a concert, you can go and buy some merch, like if you're that into it. I know how you feel because we had a fulfillment company for our changelog merch for years, and they were charging us a reasonable fee, but it was a monthly fee regardless of how much we shipped out. And a lot of it's because they're actually holding warehouse space for us. And it just got to be too expensive for what we were doing. And so I took changelog merch in-house. And so like my house now has all of our inventory in it. And when people order stuff, I package it up and ship it out, kind of a grassroots style, which I think is fun. It's also, obviously more of a chore than it is like progress, but I'm sure that was a big endeavor. Did you get the whole family involved? Did you call Nick over? How did you get everything shipped out on time?
Yeah, I mean, I have 2 kids and a partner, and we all chipped in helping fill the swag bags and sent them out. And I think that that was the best way to do it, honestly, because we were able to give free shipping to our Open Collective supporters. And we did charge, I think, $40 for the bundle, but it was all like stickers, it was shirts, and we had like a special, I think, bonus hologram sticker for Open Collective supporters too. So
that's cool.
There's a ton of like extra little touches that went into it that I don't think we could have done with like a white glove service.
Right.
So yeah, I was happy with that too. And I'll probably do that again next year. It's just, once you have all of these decisions made, there's not much upkeep to it.
Right. The first time is the hardest because you have to put all that work in, but progressively less work each year. Is there anything you do dramatically different next year?
We would have communicated to more folks about sponsorship.
There you go.
I don't think I sent out any sponsor emails. It was just like passively, people want to sponsor. That's great. And we got, we got a couple sponsors, but I think we could have gotten more participation if I had like cold emailed some folks out. But yeah, that's maybe what I'll try and do differently next time, because it would be also great to have sort of like that be a fundraising push for the open source project too. But we did end up losing a couple grand on the conference, but I think it was money well spent because it built just a ton of project momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think that momentum definitely paid off in terms of our fundraising efforts in the last week.
Well, I thought you were going to say next year I'll probably do it at a zoo.
I had to buy a zoo first, just like Matt Damon.
There you go.
Yeah, we did do our conference at the zoo, and that was amazing.
Twice,
baby.
Yeah, that was awesome.
We did it at a zoo. We did it at a train station. We did it at a cathedral. Is that what you call that place? A cathedral, perhaps?
Temple.
What was the other location? What am I forgetting?
The place downtown.
Mm-hmm.
The glass place. The
Holland
theater.
Performing Arts Center.
Yeah, that's
yes, at the Holland Performing Arts Center. So at
it was a space theme, which made sense.
a orchestra theater. Yeah, that's right.
That was the fancier one, I think.
That was fancy. They had like park special places and stuff. The magic themed one at I think it was an Irish cathedral.
The Scottish,
if I'm remembering.
Scottish.
Scottish.
Right.
Yeah.
The Scottish Rite, yes. So, and it wasn't a cathedral with like a big steeple and stuff, or was there? I don't remember. There was definitely a actively working religious worship there, but I don't remember if it's a cathedral or what that actually requires for a building to be called a cathedral. But let's just call it that.
I don't think it was religious based. I think it was like one of those like
like a
culty,
mason.
The Masons.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe it was like a Mason's lodge. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't say culty. Take that out.
Let's say that might also be religious based. I don't know. Anyways, we are out over our skis here. Closing that, well, first of all, Nick, do you have any directions besides the terrible direction you took the conversation earlier that we all got super depressed about? Do you have any other directions you want to go ahead with Zach before we wrap this?
Oh, man. How much time do we have? Because I can bring up Tailwind and...
Well, if we want to hop on the some rage bait, we could get Zach to drop some hot takes on us, and then we could really get the listen.
You could title this episode "Top 10 Reasons Why I Will Never Use Tailwind," and then we'll just never talk about it.
Don't tempt us.
I'm fine with that. Go ahead.
I don't know. You're an alum of Nebraska JS, and a few weeks ago we talked about Tailwind at Nebraska JS. Also, just randomly, I haven't updated the Nebraska JS website since before the pandemic, but I assume that is a pre-11D that it's built on. Is that accurate?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't know. That might be Jekyll.
It's JavaScript, I think.
I
Homebrew,
don't know. I'll have to
custom.
look, but I think it is hosted on Netlify now, isn't it?
What if it's like a primordial version of 11D in there? That'd be kind of a cool architectural history lesson.
Yeah.
It's not a homegrown thing. It's not a homegrown script, is it?
I think it is.
No way.
Well, let's look at the source
No
code while we're all
way.
here. Let's find out. Let's get to the bottom of this. If you want to see what 11D looked
right
like
here.
before 11D.
Gem
you
file. Gem file.
Gem file.
Man,
it's
am I
Jekyll.
wrong?
Jekyll.
Come on, Nick, do your research.
Does have a grunt file in it,
There's
though.
a grunt file in
Yeah.
there. Okay, so there's some
I think that's
JavaScript.
just static assets.
I just don't see gem files.
Yep, it's Jekyll.
Oh, well, that was an opportunity at
Darn.
amazing history, and it turns out to just be a gem file. Oh, well, I'm glad we did this.
I mean, I can spelunk, I think, and find maybe the earliest 11D project for you if you're interested, but that's probably 2017, early 2017.
All right, let's loop back to the beginning. Zach needs your help to make 11D fully independent and sustainable in 2024. That's the name of the blog post. Zach, for those listening, maybe 11D users, maybe just web dev community folks, like how can we help you? What's the best way to get involved?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing right now is to, if you are already in the 11D community and you get benefit out of 11D, and 11D helps you build your websites and projects and helps you in your everyday development, then hit us with a recurring contribution on our Open Collective or our GitHub sponsors. We're trying to get to 6,000 recurring monthly. That's sort of the goal. And yeah, I think once we get there, we'll be in a great spot. And all of our funding is open. So you can check out our Open Collective if you're curious about how we're using the funds moving forward. And I'm always available for questions. So yeah, hit me up on Mastodon is probably the best way to reach me, but I'm on all of the other social media platforms. So I may not want to be on all of the other social media platforms, but I am on all of the other ones. So yeah, just hit me up if you have questions. And I think the other thing, if you're not already part of the 11D community, just try it out. Just experiment with it. If it goes well, great. Tell me about it. And if it doesn't go well, also tell me about it because I want to know.
What's the best way? Like, is it just vanilla 11D, or would it be to try one of the, what do you call them, like starter kits? Or
Yeah, you can try a starter project. I really just am a firm believer of starting from scratch and building from scratch and knowing every single piece that goes into the project so you can understand the entirety of what you're building and understand all of the different pieces that go into it, because that's the best maintenance, the best way to maintain a project for 10 years.
you sound like a Vim user.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna hit the 10-year mark where folks have been using 11D for 10 years. We're already on year 7 right now, so maybe almost 8. So yeah, I think just there's a certain long-term investment that goes into the project that I think will pay off if you put time into it. So it's great.
Very cool. Well, all the links to all the things are in your show notes. You already know that because I say it all the time. We will hopefully get from Zach the video of his daughter, who is better at typing than you are, Nick.
True.
And check out the blog post, support 11D and independent open source creators. I mean, let's talk about those people. That one guy in Nebraska, not Iowa, but in Nebraska, who's holding up the internet's infrastructure with his open source project. It's not Zach, he's in Iowa, but it's a guy a lot like Zach, or a gal, who knows. We need to support these folks, and Zach is certainly one of them. So check that stuff out. Thank you for listening. On behalf of Nick, Nisi, and Zach Leatherman, I'm Jared, and this is JS Party, and we'll talk to you all on the next one.
Keep building for the web.
There you go. All right, that is JS Party for this week. Please do support Zach and the 11D project. If you get value from it, supporting indie creators is the coolest. And if you dig what we're up to, you can support us as well with a Changelog++ membership. No pressure at all, especially if you can't afford it. We'll be fine. But if you can afford to, or if your employer sets aside an education budget, check it out at changelog.com/++. As a thank you, we hook you up with an ad-free feed, give you extended episodes like this one, which has a bonus 12 minutes for plus members coming right up, send you some stickers and more. It's better. Thanks again to our partners at Fly.io, to the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder for producing all of our beats, and to our friends at Sentry. Use code CHANGELOG when you sign up for a team plan and save $100. Too easy, and Sentry is so good at what they do. Next up on the pod, I moderate another Yep Nope debate with K-Ball, Nick, and some special guests. The premise, should web development need a build step? That's all for now, but come back and party with us once again next week. That might be a reason for you to move back to Nebraska.
Just that one X KCD.
Just so you can like make that fact and not just like almost true.
I do immediately think of you, like when I see that.
It's better.